Unique people leading unique lives shape and inform Iowa City. This community is enhanced by these women and men who live in our midst, working, teaching, creating. Welcome to a series of conversations with people who have stories to tell. Join my guests and me, Ellen Buchanan, in a series of interviews called One of a Kind. My guest on One of a Kind is Christine Scheetz, President and CEO of United Way of Johnson County. Christine's involvement in our community is extensive. In the past, she served as Program Director of Youth Emergency Services Shelter, Executive Director of the Iowa Center for AIDS Resources and Education, Project Manager, Iowa Consortium of Substance Abuse Research, Community Health Partnership Coordinator, Mercy, Iowa City, and the Director of Community and Patient Relations, UIHC. Christine Scheetz holds a BS in English from the University of Iowa and a Master's of Public Administration from Drake University. She served and serves on many boards in our community, from the Community Foundation of Johnson County to the Ronald McDonald House Charity Scholarship Committee, the Iowa City Area Chamber of Commerce, the Iowa Arts Festival Board, American Cancer Board of Directors, and numerous others. You wonder when she sleeps. Her many awards include the 2009 Professional of the Year from the ARC of Southeast Iowa, the 2009 Platinum Award for Leading During a Crisis, that's the Girl Scouts of Eastern Iowa and Western Illinois, the 2008 Pi Alpha Alpha Honor Society for Public Policy, and the 2007 Women of Influence Award, the Corridor Business Journal. And just recently, she was awarded an Individual and Service Organization Award from the Iowa City Human Rights Commission. My guest, Christine Scheetz, grew up in Iowa City, graduating from Regina High School, and welcome to One of a Kind.
Thank you, Ellen.
This will be fun, and I think looking back at all of my guests, I think you might be the youngest, so this will be really
What an
fun.
honor.
Yeah. Your story begins in August of '42 when you were born. Let's talk about your first family and their influence on you, your siblings, your mother and your dad.
My parents are wonderful. Ray and Ann Scheetz, they really put family first in everything. They taught me the values that I have today, and really in their own way were the first social workers I knew because they taught us to treat everyone with unconditional positive regard. They have established to this day really extensive family gatherings to bring us together and help us just really enjoy our relationships within our family.
And you have 3 siblings.
Yes, my oldest sister Vicki lives in Burlington, and she is a school teacher, teaches elementary school, spent many years teaching special education, and now teaches in a 5th grade classroom, and is just an incredible person. She has 3 wonderful daughters who are each very inspiring. And then my other sister, Cindy, passed away in 2005. But she and her husband, Steve, have 3 boys, and they are very much a part of my life now, and I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Right.
And then my brother, Randy, who is 6 years older than I am, is an engineer and manager with John Deere. He has spent his entire career with John Deere and is in the Moline area, and he also has 3 children. So I have 9 nieces and nephews. He has 2 girls and 1 boy.
Well, let's talk about the story of you becoming a caregiver to your sister's 3 sons?
3 sons and her husband. In 1998, Cindy's husband, Steve, suffered an anoxic brain injury, meaning he was in the hospital, he was having back surgery, and there were complications. And so he went into cardiac arrest and is permanently disabled, and has done better than anyone could ever imagine. He stayed in their home with the family throughout Cindy's life after his brain injury, and that really helped the kids develop their relationships with their dad and they very much are involved now. Even though he's in a nursing home, he lives right next door to us, and so we are able to see him often, and he's a part of all family gatherings.
And you are the guardian of their 3 children, is that correct?
Right, they are all now of legal age, 2 in college and 1 who has graduated from college. The oldest one lives with me currently. He graduated from Augustana College in Sioux Falls, South Dakota a year ago, and he is doing an AmeriCorps Vista placement working on the shelter house overflow project.
There's a thread in your family, isn't there?
There is a thread of helping in
Yes,
my family,
totally.
for sure. And so I'm very proud of him. He is planning to go to graduate school in social work and will be applying next year to begin that program, and will finish his Vista placement next summer. And the 2 younger boys are both at the University of Northern Iowa studying computer science, and live together, and
that's great.
They're all very good friends, and it's a delight to have them all at home. I understand this weekend they will all be at home.
Well, you know, I read something in one of your articles, that you were quoted in one of the articles, that you said, caregiving is the issue of our age. Talk a little bit about this comment.
It certainly is. There are so many people either caring for a sick relative, a disabled relative, or an aging parent. And so throughout that, it's sort of a quiet thing that people are doing, and sometimes you feel quite isolated in that caregiving role. And so I do feel a responsibility to share my experience with people and help them understand the things that help you get through it, and to developing the social network of people who can help you and explain things to you and guide you through that process so that it doesn't feel so
Alone.
lonely.
Where did you get your support? What kind of support is there out there for?
Well, I have a wonderful group of friends who were fabulous throughout everything that I've been through when my sister was ill.
Connie Benton-Wolf?
And I'm certainly going to say one of my mentors in this area, both professionally and then in terms of caregiving, has been my predecessor at United Way, Connie Benton-Wolf, and she has become a dear friend. She was a caregiver for her mother, which is what brought her back to Iowa. She was raised in Iowa but had lived away from Iowa for many years, and she came back to take care of her mother. And then she also has a son with some special needs. So we're able to talk with each other and really understand what that labyrinth of caregiving is all about. And so she has helped me in many ways.
So for somebody out there listening to this interview, where did you turn, you and Connie and others like you, either caring for a child or an aging parent or a sibling?
It helped that I knew quite a bit about the Human Services Network, and so there were organizations that I was able to turn to in looking at, one, how could I be supportive to these young boys who had lost a parent, and so I looked at Iowa City Hospice for some guidance there. I worked with the nursing home where Steve lives and worked with their social workers to understand some of the issues related to benefits and you name it, any place I could get that kind of guidance. I had spent quite a bit of time around healthcare settings and working with patient relations at the hospital, knew how to navigate and advocate for someone who had a lot of health issues to deal with, and so that was beneficial.
Kind of a lonely road at times, I'm sure. But you have those dogs.
But I do have those
dogs that they're very important in your life, aren't they?
They're always there and always supportive and always happy to see me no matter how bad the day has been. I do have 2 wonderful Akitas. They are the 3rd and 4th Akitas that I've had. And they're just great big bear dogs.
Why this breed? I mean, why this kind of a dog?
They're just gentle giants. They have really independent personalities and are very easy to have around the house. They just sort of hang out and don't require a whole lot, but they're very, very loyal to their family.
And love to see you when you even come home in the middle of the day, like you did today, you said.
When I come home in the middle of the day, they're a little confused, but very happy to see me.
Did you, growing up in this family that's interested in other people and helping other people, did you think that you would make a career out of not-for-profit organizations and public policy organizations?
That really wasn't the direction that I had started out in necessarily. I was studying business and political science when I was an undergraduate, and I really found my passion when I began volunteering for the Crisis Center. And it changed everything.
You were in college.
I was in college.
You said it changed your life, and I read.
Yes.
Tell me about
it
this.
It changed my life. Because I was exposed to so many different circumstances and knew that I had been very privileged in my life and had this tremendous family support and a good network of friends, and just started to really think through and understand that there were so many people who were feeling alone and isolated and not having that kind of support. And so my initial work was volunteering with the crisis intervention line and suicide intervention. And so that became just really fascinating to me, that you could provide this peer support at a time when people were in crisis, and what a difference it could make.
But you were in college. I mean, you were just a young girl. But
Well,
who trained you? You were trained.
The training through the Crisis Center is extensive and really wonderful. It is a model of helping that is used in social work curriculum and is used by most crisis intervention lines. And it is really exceptional because it helps you to relate to someone with empathy and to really address their crisis as being self-defined, no matter how serious it might be, whether it is something that approaches the level of someone feeling suicidal, and how to assess that level of their reality and what the circumstances might be in their life and what support they do have, so that you can try to connect them with the things that are worth living for. But beyond that, if it's a relationship issue or a financial issue, they were all things that in one way or another you can relate to, because what you're really talking about is human emotion. And if you can approach that with empathy and concern, then you really can connect with another human being and build that rapport and build the trust that's necessary for them to help identify their own strengths and get through really any crisis.
You were also in college and on a board for child abuse too.
Yes.
What was this? What was the name of that?
The Johnson County Child Abuse and Neglect Council, or Council Against Child Abuse and Neglect. And it's a very serious problem all over the country, and certainly in our own community, and not something that people have an easy time talking about. So it was very important to me to get involved with that group and to figure out what we could do to try and create supports in our community that would help a child be able to succeed even when they might have the worst circumstances in their own home life. And that continues to be a great passion for me today.
Oh, good. Now, after these two, you were involved in these two organizations, and you graduated from Iowa. You went to Drake and got...
I went to Drake many years later.
Oh, you went to Drake later.
Many years
right
later.
Out. What did you right outside of
Right
college?
after college, I was lucky enough to find a job in this field and went to Des Moines and worked for an organization called Youth Emergency Services and Shelter. And their program, a residential program for runaway and homeless youth. So I directed the program, the actual shelter program. About 95% of the youth who were in shelter were estranged from their family in one way or another, and had often run away. And as I said, about 95% of them had been physically, sexually, or emotionally abused.
So how long were you at this?
About 2 years.
And then what next?
Yes, during that time, that site had been selected to be involved in a pilot project for prevention, developing a prevention program that would be used nationally with youth for prevention of HIV and AIDS. And so we were the only Midwest site. The rest were in areas that had been very hard hit already by AIDS. Los Angeles, Seattle, Miami, Boston, New York City, Atlanta, and then Des Moines, Iowa. And so it was a really wonderful experience to learn what would make a difference in prevention. And of course, at that time, when someone was diagnosed with AIDS, it was usually a death sentence. It was at a time when there was a tremendous amount of prejudice, great stigma, and there were not the drugs that are available now to manage the disease. And so when I moved back to Iowa City, an organization that was relatively new, the Iowa Center for AIDS Resources and Education.
That's what brought you
or
back to
iCare,
Iowa City. Okay,
yes,
iCare.
was just looking for their first executive director, and I was lucky enough to be hired for that position.
So how long were you with iCare?
About 3.5 years. And during that time, I was involved with every aspect of developing the volunteer program, which was a buddy program to match someone, a volunteer, trained volunteer, with someone who had an HIV or AIDS diagnosis. And they did everything from providing emotional support to them to really physical types of chores around the house and helping them stay in their home as long as possible. So they might take them grocery shopping or just out to have an outing someplace, out to dinner, or cook for them in their home. Often the clients were very weak and of course losing weight, and so making sure that they had adequate nutrition was very important.
Was iCare a part of United Way, or where did they get their funding?
iCare was just applying to be affiliated with United Way at that time, and that was one of my first exposures to United Way of Johnson County. And so during that time when I was the director, then we did receive that funding from United Way and the affiliation with United Way, and then also other sources of local support.
And then you moved to Mercy.
Actually, there's a job in there,
Oh, is there?
in between. I was
Oh.
with the Iowa Consortium for Research and Evaluation, which was a great experience. That is a consortium that's made up of the 3 Regents universities and Drake University. So researchers in various departments at each of those universities, all departments of state government that have an interest in substance abuse, and then the not-for-profit, mostly in Iowa, or hospital-based programs that provide treatment services. So it was a 3-year assessment and study of what the treatment needs for substance abuse were in the state of Iowa.
How interesting.
And part of my involvement was traveling around the state to do the coordination of culturally specific studies. So the Latino population, Asian population, African American population, and I think I've left somebody out. Our
Caucasian.
Yes,
of course.
Had sort of a special focus so that we could better understand what those treatment needs were. And then there was also a look at prevention needs and what better we could be doing throughout the state to prevent substance abuse.
What an education.
It was a tremendous education in research, and I became very interested in how to conduct social research, and that has served me well in my career since then, because I learned so much from some really great researchers.
And you took it to your next job then?
To my next job, which was at Mercy, Iowa City, with a Healthy People 2000 effort, which later became Community Health Partnership. And that is similar in some ways to the work that we do with United Way. We are focused on looking at root causes, doing assessment of the community and understanding what the root causes of the leading issues are, and then working to try and address those through various resources.
Well, then you went to UIHC,
Then
which was different than what you'd been working on,
Very
correct?
different. I kind of got the itch again to be doing some direct service, and one of the things that really appealed to me about that was the opportunity to work on the culture at University of Iowa hospitals and clinics, to work toward greater customer service of really creating patient-centered care there. And so being a part of that was thrilling. And just being in University of Iowa hospitals and clinics is quite amazing, because you're thinking the whole time about the extraordinary things that are going on there every day, the lives that are being touched and changed, and the work that just fascinating human beings are doing in their fields. So it was a really incredible experience there.
Learning all the while with
All
these,
the time.
and then now you're the CEO of United Way.
Which is just a dream come true. It is the perfect fit of the things that I've done throughout my life.
If you look at your trajectory,
It seems
it's amazing.
so well planned,
I
doesn't
know,
it?
there it is.
I'd like to say it was,
Yes,
but
but it's-
really there have just been some great opportunities along the way, and I'm so pleased that I've been able to enjoy a career in my hometown that has been so rich and fulfilling, and that I'm able every day to give something back.
So tell me, let's talk about United Way, because it's a huge organization. What for you have been so far the biggest challenges in this job?
We certainly, about 6 months after I was hired as the president and CEO, we had the floods of 2008, and so we ended up having a new responsibility in the community, which was Emergency Volunteer Center. And in the aftermath of the flood, we coordinated the volunteers for cleanup. And that's work we continue to do now, though the work is more extensively in case management. From the very early days of the flood, we had established a flood relief fund, and then contracted with the Crisis Center to provide case management services. They continue to do that to this day, and have helped many, many people in the community access other sources of funds, as well as provided direct assistance through the United Way Flood Relief Fund. That vision for the Volunteer Center is much broader than emergency work and disaster preparedness, and we have recently hired a Volunteer Center coordinator to help us with that work. Shane Schemmel has joined us and is working with Patty Fields, our Director of Community Impact, to develop not only the Emergency Volunteer Center component and train people to be active in disasters, but also to see how we can be of assistance with our partner agencies and other organizations that utilize volunteers.
So how did the flood impact? I mean, this of course impacted you, but I'm talking about for fundraising, which is, the big thing, so you can cover all these organizations. Did you see a big change, or did people step up to the plate?
This community is extremely generous, and one of the things that came out of the flood is that human needs were really front and center. People were very aware of the issues that are prevalent in our community, with or without the flood, but affordable housing, basic shelter, food, clothing, the things that people have to have, those needs that people have to have met before they can look at being more financially stable. So United Way works really to create pathways out of poverty and to help people reach independence and financial stability. We are working in 3 focus areas, that being one of them: income or financial stability, education, helping every child and youth in our community have the greatest opportunities and the best education possible, including all of the social support that goes along with that. And then every child, youth, and adult having optimal mental and physical health. So all of the things that we fund really are working in those 3 areas.
So if you were to tell somebody who didn't know anything about United Way, I can't believe anybody does, but if they did, if they did, what do you think you do best? Is it just what you just said, having the umbrella to help people in need?
I think it's 3 things: that we assess what the problems are, We mobilize the community, and when I think about mobilizing the community, it's not only the financial resources, but also the talent, the education, the expertise in so many different areas, and the volunteerism, which is incredible in our community. Directing all of that where it is most needed, where it will have the greatest impact, and then evaluating how we're doing and making sure that we continue to move in a direction that is positive for our community and that helps create better opportunities for everyone.
Now I'm going to shift gears a little and get back to you personally. I always ask my guests who or what has made a big difference in their lives. So who or what has made a big difference in yours?
Sure. I mentioned my family, and of course that is the foundation on which everything else rests, and I know with certainty that that is what keeps me grounded. And so they're a huge influence in my life. I lost my father about 3 years ago, and his influence is still felt and his presence is still felt, but my mom is still with us, and she is a remarkably strong and resilient woman and a great role model.
What has she taught you?
I
know the value of family.
Yes. She was an early teacher of really looking at things from other people's perspectives. And it is almost, I can't think of a time where I can't look at a situation and understand what the other person is thinking, you know, what kinds of attitudes they might be bringing to their own decision or their own perspective on an issue. And I think that that has helped a great deal in conflict resolution and facilitating groups and understanding human behavior. And she's a wonderful cook, so she's taught me that too. She's taught me how to love cooking and spending time in the kitchen.
Oh, those are lovely attributes. What a wonderful mother you have. Of your many contributions that you've so far in your very young life, is there one that has meant the most to you, something that you've been involved in or done?
I think that any of the work that I've done where I really was able to serve as a voice for someone whose voice wasn't being heard has been very important. You know, I've learned a lot from the people who I've worked with, who maybe didn't have a lot of resources, but they had incredible life experience, they had incredible attitudes, and really would use just their strength to get through sometimes what seemed like just insurmountable obstacles. And so that resiliency is with me always, and really helps me live with a lot of gratitude.
That's great. Aside from your caregiving in your professional life, what are your avocations? What do you love doing? You obviously love to cook because of your mother.
I do love to cook. I love to play golf, though I'm not very good at it, but that is very relaxing. After many years of dating and a marriage and a divorce, I have a wonderful man in my life who I get to share a lot of time with. He's an outstanding partner and has 3 boys as well, and so I'm very grateful to have them as part of my life too.
That's great. And I've heard, I should never ask a question I know the answer to about what your interests are. I heard that you love to read.
I do love to read.
So what books are by your bedside when you have time to read?
It is such a mix because I read a lot of nonfiction. I do read a lot of...
Like
some
history?
Some
or?
memoir. I read about economics.
Oh, do you?
Which,
that's great.
Which is sort of a newfound love in probably the last 5 years, but I find it fascinating. And then I read novels and you name it, for such a wide variety of writers. When somebody asks me the question about what are your favorite books, I think that's like asking somebody, who's your favorite child?
You can't.
You cannot name one.
No, but that's great. What's the best part of living in I know you grew up here, you left, came back. What do you if you could tell somebody from one of the coasts of why you love Iowa City, what is it?
You always have an opportunity to be involved. I think that it is a welcoming community in the sense that there is always a need for people to be actively engaged, and you see people from all walks of life who are very involved in making the community better. And so I love that about Iowa City. I love being able to get around easily and take advantage of arts and culture here, of farmers market, of many great restaurants. And it's a very simple, safe way of life, but with a lot of vibrancy. And I love the students. I love it when they come back. There's just something very exciting in the air every year when students come back.
Yeah, does your year start in September too when the students come back?
Yes.
So does mine. Well, on that positive note, I will say thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you, Ellen.
My guest on One of a Kind has been Christine Scheetz, a native of Iowa City and currently the CEO of United Way of Johnson County and the former Director of Community and Patient Relations at University Hospitals. Words used to describe my guest are committed, a good listener, team player, dedicated to family, compassionate caregiver, dynamic, an avid reader, and lots of fun. Christine Scheetz is one of a kind.